Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to try and hack the hacker's mindset. We'll explore one of the most, I think, powerful practices in all of cybersecurity, and that's threat modeling. Let's really break down how you can systematically find security flaws, well, before they find you. Let's kick things off with a pretty crucial, maybe even a counterintuitive, truth about security. The thing is, even the strongest systems out there can be defeated. And it's almost never how you'd expect. It's not always about some supercomputer brute forcing a password. It's usually about finding some clever, totally overlooked little path. Okay, so let's dive into what that really means. See, if you really want to build secure systems, you have to do something that feels a little backwards at first. You've got to stop thinking purely about defense, and you have to start thinking like an attacker. I'm telling you, it is a fundamental shift in perspective, and it changes absolutely everything. Let's just be real for a second. Perfect 100% events is impossible. It just doesn't exist. So security isn't really about building this impenetrable digital fortress. It's all about prioritizing your defenses against the most likely attacks. Think about it. An attacker is almost always going to go for the easiest target, right? The simplest path in. And that means our job is to find and fix that low-hanging fruit before they do. So who are these attackers, really? Well, their motivations are all over the map. An attacker could be anyone, from a teenager in their basement just looking for thrills, all the way to a super well-funded state actor with massive geopolitical goals. And understanding their why, what gets them out of bed in the morning, that is the absolute first step in predicting their how. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we move away from just, random ad hoc security checks and into a real structured process? Well, what we need is a map. We need a formal way to visualize exactly how an attacker sees our system. And this is what threat modeling is all about. Now, pay close attention to that key phrase on the slide, during the design phase. This is so important. Instead of waiting to find bugs in the code after it's already written, we're hunting for fundamental design flaws on the blueprint, before a single line of code is ever typed. And let me tell you, that saves an unbelievable amount of time and money down the road. Now, a really powerful tool for this whole process is something called an attack tree. What it does is it forces you to think step by step, literally mapping out every single possible path an attacker could take. You start with their big ultimate goal at the top, like getting admin access, and then you just keep breaking it down into smaller and smaller actions. And for us, the defenders, the job becomes crystal clear. All we have to do is find a way to break just one link in every single one of those chains. Okay, but building those trees can be pretty daunting, right? How do you make sure you don't miss anything? Well, to help organize our thinking, we can use these amazing frameworks, like Stride. Honestly, the best way to think of it is just as a checklist of all the bad things an attacker might want to do to our system. So what you do is you systematically go through each and every part of your system, and for each part you ask the Stride questions. Could an attacker spoof an identity here? Is it possible for them to tamper with this data flow? Could they cause a denial of service against this component? By just walking through this methodically, you can uncover a massive range of potential threats you might have otherwise missed. Okay, great. So after our Stride analysis, we probably have this huge kind of scary list of potential threats. Now what? We can't fix everything at once. We just don't have the time or resources. That's where a model like Dread comes in. It gives us a really simple way to score each threat so we can actually rank them and figure out what to tackle first. And this is the magic of it, right? By scoring each threat, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10 across each of these 5 categories, you suddenly turn these vague, gut-feeling fears into cold, hard, objective data. It lets you compare totally different kinds of risks directly, and that means you can focus your limited resources exactly where they're going to have the most impact. So that brings us to the next big question, doesn't it? We've mapped the threats, we've ranked them, we know what could go wrong in theory. But how do we actually find these vulnerabilities in our system? How do we find the actual holes in our software? Well, for that, we need to bring in the tools. We need an automated arsenal. And here's where we make that jump from theory into practice. Let's talk about the automated tools that can act as our tireless little threat hunters, constantly scanning our systems for the exact weaknesses we've just been mapping out. Now, if you've ever dipped your toe into the world of security testing, you know it is just an absolute alphabet soup of confusing acronyms. SAST, DAST, IAST. Seriously, it can feel pretty overwhelming, so let's break it down and make it simple. The really crucial thing to get here is that these tools all do different jobs at different times.
Think of SAST, or static testing, like a spell checker for your source code. It reads the blueprint, right, and finds issues before the program is even running. Then you have DAST, or dynamic testing. This is more like a crash test dummy for your running application. It's a black box approach. It attacks from the outside, trying to break things without knowing how it's built. And then there's fuzzing, which is just pure chaos in the best way. It just throws millions of pieces of random, unexpected data at your program, trying to find those wild, unpredictable crashes and memory issues.
Okay, here is another key distinction you're going to hear all the time: vulnerability assessment versus penetration testing. A VA is wide. It's an automated scan that's designed to find all known problems. It gives you this huge list of potential issues. A pen test, on the other hand, is deep. It's a manual, creative, human-led attack. Its goal isn't to find everything. It's to find one way in and see just how far an actual attacker could get. One asks, are we vulnerable? The other asks, okay, we are, so what's the worst that can happen? So the big question is, where does all this fit into the real world? I mean, in today's super fast-paced world of Agile and DevOps, you can't just have security be this final gate at the end of the process that slows everything down. It just doesn't work. It has to be woven into the fabric of the entire process. And that's the key to making this work in a modern team. Threat modeling can't be a one-time thing you do at the beginning and then forget about. No, it has to be a continuous conversation that's part of the entire development lifecycle. It becomes a living, breathing document that evolves right alongside the product, from the very first design sketches all the way through to day-to-day operations. In fact, the most advanced teams are taking this a step further. They're starting to treat their threat models just like they treat their code. By defining the model in a simple machine-readable file, like YAML or something, it can be checked into version control, it can be automatically tested, and it can be updated as part of your CI/CD pipeline. And this is a game changer because it finally allows security to move at the same speed as development. And really, this shift in mindset is the ultimate takeaway here. The goal is to stop asking this impossible binary question, is it secure? Instead, we start asking a much better, much more useful question. Have we considered the threats? It's a move away from a simple checklist and towards a continuous strategic conversation about risk. So that's really the question I want to leave you with. Is your security a wall that you build hoping it never gets broken? Or is it a conversation that never, ever ends? A dynamic process of questioning and adapting? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in to The Explainer.